Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and today I'm going to be doing check-in with the TikTok books that I've been trying to read. Brittany and I made a video a couple months ago because we've been obsessed with TikTok and have naturally fallen on to book talk. And we made a list of books that we really want to read and prioritize that we're constantly seeing on there. And I figured I would do a little bit of a recap with my priority list with TikTok books that have surfaced recently, ones that I just keep putting off. But without further ado, I'm going to go with my most recent read, which I got this because I just got Kindle Unlimited and I kept seeing this series everywhere on Book Talk. It kept popping up, and really book 2 kept popping up, and I can't just jump into book 2. So I read the first book, and that is Flock by Katee Stewart. This is a romance book following a young woman whose dad is this multi-billionaire guy, but she's never seen a lick of his money. She turns 18, she wants to take a gap year, and she's working in his factory while also trying to build a relationship with him, and naturally gravitates toward a bad boy. That's essentially what we jump into, and then we're jumped into this plot of her trying to better the factory and, you know, showing her dad that things could be so much better at this place, and he starts implementing some of the changes that she brings up. But then we lose that entirely about halfway through the book. And it's all about how weirdly obsessed she becomes with her boss. And granted, when they meet and start their whole fling, she doesn't know that he's her boss. That just sort of becomes a byproduct, if anything. And she's just weirdly obsessed with him and his buddies. Like, just creepily obsessed. And it literally takes all of her personality. Like, we go from her, she's very headstrong. I mean, she's headstrong the entire time, and at one point just becomes an annoyance. But she starts developing feelings, and she was told not to, and he's just weirdly weird. He's really toxic, and I understand that this is supposed to be a toxic relationship. And then it turns into a weird poly thing, which is fine, but it just came out of nowhere. All in all, I'm saying is, I know that I did some research after I read this book, and book 2 is where it's at. I can't get past of how stupid book 1 was and how just pretentious she was in that entire book. I have zero desire to go into book 2. So I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I was not a fan. I literally just tried to finish it just for the sake of finishing this book. Like, it was not cool. No. The next book that I have on this list is Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This book was actually gifted to me in a Christmas exchange or holiday exchange a couple months ago. And I've just been slowly reading this entire series. We follow a group of women who are kidnapped by aliens, and then that alien ship crash lands on what they call not Hoth, because it has the similar atmosphere to Hoth from Star Wars, and they find these blue men. And it's just these short sci-fi romance novels. I love these because they are, to me, the perfect palate cleanser from the high fantasy that I read and the intense romance that I also read. This is brain empty, just weird alien romance. That's what these books are. I'm currently on book 10. If that's any indication as to how much I enjoy these. Some of them are really good, some of them are really stupid. It has a whole breeding thing going on with it. They're blue, they have horns, they have tails. It's a whole thing, but it's just a good brain empty, no thoughts kind of series, and I live for it. Up next is actually not a specific book, but more of a specific author, and that is Colleen Hoover. I had never really heard of Colleen Hoover until I found Book Talk. And originally I saw this book first. It Ends With Us, and I thought this was a romance novel. I was wrong. It's not a romance novel. This hurt me and ripped my heart out. But I love Colleen Hoover's writing style. She is fantastic. She has an amazing prose, and she just warps these fantastic stories into very easily consumable, just little standalone novels. Now, don't get me wrong. She just announced there's a sequel to this, and I am dying. I love it. So, once I finished this book, I realized I loved her writing, and I think that her stories are really great and really powerful and really well written. So, I've been reading a lot of her backlog. So I have read Ugly Love, Confess, and the most recent one I've read is November 9, which I picked up November 9 specifically because I think I bought these two on the same day, and then I forgot November I had it. So I read Ugly Love and then Confess, and then I kept seeing November 9, and I'm like, oh man, I should pick that one up next. And then I looked at my shelves and I already had it. So I read it. And I love it. These two are definitely my favorite Colleen Hoover books so far. The next one that I keep seeing on my For You page currently is Verity. So I think that's the next one I will dive into by Colleen Hoover, but I'm just slowly going through her backlog. If you have any that I should prioritize, please let me know, because I have yet to dislike a single one of her books. She's fantastic. And they're all standalones, which I really love, that I can just consume it. And I have a good conclusion at the end, and I love that. Don't get me wrong, I really wish some of these would have sequels, like November 9. I really want November 9 to have, like, a better epilogue, or, like, a little story afterwards. And I am so happy that It Ends With Us is getting a sequel. It ended phenomenally, and it didn't leave me necessarily wanting, but I love the characters, and be good to dive right back into this world. I'm just so excited to see where she's going to take it. Up next, I have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Now, I was going to eventually get to this because I have read... Before I got on Book Talk, Brittany kept talking about Tessa Bailey's Fix Her Up series, and I ended up reading it on her recommendation, and then she told me, like, you should read this other one, and I'm like, I'll get to it, eventually. And then this was everywhere. It was everywhere. And so I was like, okay, fine. I know I like her romance writing style, I know it's really fun, and I know I'm gonna get some good steamy scenes out of it. I was not prepared for how much I was going to fall in love with these characters. And I just read Hook, Line, and Sinker right when it came out, made me cry, and I was just not prepared for the emotional investment that I got from these books, even a little. Tessa Bailey is a fantastic romance author, 110% one of my auto-buy authors from now on, especially in romance, because she writes so eloquently. Her stories are so... While sometimes have that goofiness that isn't a romance novel, they tackle really interesting character flaws. And I love that in romance novels where you actually address and try and heal your character flaws, or, you know, mental illness, physical illness is actually addressed and not just shucked off because they fell in love. It's a part of who they are, and I love that with these romances, and I fell in love with this book. I gave both this one and Hook, Line, and Sinker 5 stars. I'm in love. Up next is the book that Brittany and I picked to read first off of that video, which is Gild by Raven Kennedy. This is a quartet series. The last book isn't out yet. But Brittany and I are very patiently waiting for that book. Gild is a fantasy romance series that is a twist on the King Midas story. We follow Orin, who is a girl made out of gold, who is the pet to King Midas. I will say, Gild is my least favorite out of all the books so far. I haven't read Glow, obviously, because it's not out, but these books are very triggering. I would highly recommend looking at content warnings, but it builds. You have to kind of trudge through. And I don't really... Trudge is a strong word, because book one sets up so much. It sets up the fact that you are supposed to hate Midas. Like, hate him. And you do. And you're also supposed to kind of understand that Orin is very sheltered and stupid. Which is fine. It was a little reminiscent of From Blood and Ash with Poppy. How she was extremely sheltered, asked a lot of questions, made a lot of stupid choices because of how sheltered she was. So I appreciate the authenticity of that aspect, but this one was a little rough to get through. Now, Glint and Gleam, fantastic. Those are really where our plot comes into play, and I am living for the power, the magic, the fae, the political intrigue, the fantasy elements, and the romance. We don't really get into the romance until Gleam, but oh my god, was it so worth the wait. I really love this series. I just wish Gild was like half of this and then the other half was Glint. That's kind of what I wish. Like, if I had just read Gild and Glint wasn't out yet, I probably would have given up on the series. But I was already forewarned, thanks to Book Talk, to get through Gild, then go to Glint, and things will be better. And that is 100% true. Up next is a YA book that I kept seeing everywhere, and that is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This follows a world where you are told 24 hours before you die. You're given a phone call by this deathcast thing that you're gonna die in the next 24 hours. And there's a bunch of social media-esque apps to find friends who are also dying so you can kind of not be lonely on your last day on Earth. Which was a really cool concept, and I really liked the idea of it. I saw it on a lot of people's all-time favorites list, and I'd actually never read an Adam Silvera book before, so I decided to give this one a chance. And it was okay. I think it was overhyped. I really wish the title was different because as much as I liked the Deathcast idea, I feel like the important aspects of the story were never acknowledged. I wanted to know how the Deathcast worked. I really thought this was going to be two boys against the Deathcast and it would be something to that nature. But it was just them. It felt like a Final Destination movie where you know these characters are supposed to die and they're probably going to die and you're watching all these weird things happen around them and it's always is this the moment they die or is this the moment they die? It was a lot of that, which was kind of fun the first couple of times, but throughout the entire book, it kind of got annoying. And then we had these random perspectives, and then the ending was very ambiguous. So, and I'm not a huge fan of ambiguous endings unless they're done really well, and to me, this one wasn't done very well. I ended up only giving this, 3 stars. It was good, it just was meh. It was built up, I think, too much in my head, and it just did not live up to the expectations I had put on it. Up next, I have Bully by Penelope Douglas. This is my first bully romance, which is exactly what it sounds. The bully relationship turned into a romance. And I wanted to read a bully romance before I jumped into Zodiac Academy, because I heard that one was a bully romance, but it's not one you should start with. And a couple of the romance TikTokers that I follow recommended this one as a step into the bully romance. And I would agree with that. I would 100% agree that this was a good one to step into if you've never experienced a bully romance. Now, this is the only bully romance I've experienced, and I actually really enjoyed it. It took a little bit to get into, but I think that buildup of the relationship and the core aspects of the bullying were addressed before the relationship. And I think that was really important for this to work. And I really liked it. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I will definitely be diving into more Penelope Douglas because I really liked her romance writing style. It's more gritty and raw other than the sweet and more romantic that I'm more accustomed to. And I like getting that different take of a romance book. Next, I have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I've had this on my shelves forever, and books have convinced me to read it, and I have never been more obsessed with a book. This is currently my obsession. I reread pieces of this book all the time right now. I have the bonus chapter from Adam's perspective in my email inbox that I'll occasionally go to. This is a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic, but it is set with these 2 scientists that I just adore. This romance was cute, adorable, had so many nerdy references that I was living for. And I'm just obsessed with Ali Hazelwood's writing. I love the fact that she actually is a scientist, so she knows what she's talking about. I was able to understand so much of this book and relate to so much of this book, being a girl who went through a science major in school. And I just adore this romance. It's cute, it's fun, and I've now read all of Ali Hazelwood's books, including the 3 new novellas. And I am desperately waiting for Love on the Brain because I just need more. My only complaint about this book was the epilogue. It was like a page and a half, and I needed it to be like 10 pages. Just longer than the page and a half that it was. That's my only complaint about this book. Otherwise, sheer perfection. So the next one I regret a little bit reading. That is Den of Vipers. I don't remember the name of the author. I'll put the book up here. But this is a reverse harem mafia romance, if it can be called a romance. I give this 2 stars. I literally just kept seeing this everywhere on dark romances everyone should read and those kinds of lists. And I kept seeing very polarizing reviews on it. And I love reading books with polarizing reviews because then I feel like my own isn't skewed and I can be a lot more honest in my review. Because if you say you're not biased by reviews that you've already seen, you're a liar. So the more skewed ones I tend to gravitate towards because I feel like I'm going in with a lot less bias of a book. Especially if it's being overhyped, underhyped, all that fun stuff. This was 600 pages of I don't even know, essentially, is what this book was. And I don't even know how to put it into words. I gave it 2 stars. I immediately got rid of it on my Kindle Unlimited library because I couldn't look at it anymore without feeling weird. I would not recommend this at all. There was no plot. There was no romance. There was just smut and weapons and violence. And that was it. And that is not what I want out of a book. So, would not recommend this one. Moving on from that, I ended up picking up The Winner's Curse by Marie Rutkoski. This is an old YA book that I've had the entire series on my shelves for a while, but I'd never really gotten around to reading it. Until I kept seeing it on Book Talk on, again, similar to the Adam Silvera book where it was always on those lists of favorite of all times. And then I saw there was special editions made of this book. So I was like, okay, something's up with this one. So I finally decided to read it and I'm so glad I did. This is such a unique story. It is a YA, I don't even really want to call it fantasy. There's not really magic, but it's more of a political intrigue. We have Kestrel, who is this girl from this warring race of people who just keep conquering, who she buys a slave of the country she's currently living in. He is from that country. And they have recently taken over. They start to develop a weird relationship, but at the same time, they are extremely loyal to their own causes. And their back and forth is so good. It's fantastic to see the way that they make choices, the emotional and internal conflicts within this story. I haven't finished this series yet, but I finished books 1 and book 2, and I am obsessed. I really love this world. I definitely see the hype behind this series. It's not like all the other early 2010s era YA books that I have read and have just been like, I'm pretty sure I've read this 400 times before. It is not like that. It's unique. And even now, I read a lot of very recent releases. I have not really seen anything like this coming out recently. And I love that. It's such a unique romance and unique story that I am just adoring, and I'm reading the final book later this month, so we'll see how I feel once the series is over. Next, I have Neon Gods by Katee Robert. This one was also gifted to me in a gift exchange. I'm a part of a bunch of Discords from Book Talk and participate in a lot of those communities, so I got this one, and I kept seeing it everywhere as a really good romance, and it is, and I love a good Hades and Persephone retelling, which this is. This is my first delve into Katee Roberts' books. I have since started her Wicked Villains series, starting with Desperate Measures, which I was not mentally prepared for. I don't have it on this list because I didn't see that one a lot. I just really liked this one, so I went into her backlog and found that whole series. That's a conversation for another day. Neon Gods is a modern-day Hades and Persephone retelling where Hades is essentially a mafia boss and Persephone is running away from a proposed marriage to this world Zeus. And in this world, they're not actually immortals. The titles of Hades, Zeus, Hera, they are just that. They're titles. So Persephone is potentially going to become the new Hera, is how this all works. And she runs away to the underworld and finds Hades, and a relationship ensues. And it's really great. I'm really excited to jump into Electric Idol, which I plan on getting to eventually. I do have a copy of it somewhere. But this was utterly unique for Hades and Persephone retelling, and I've read a fair amount of them. And this one definitely stands out amongst them just because of how different, how modern, and how much fun it is. And the steamy scenes were good. They were good. The final book that I'm going to talk about that I have read because of Book Talk is another current obsession, and that is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I'm obsessed with this series. I have pushed this on Sarah and Brittany. Brittany is currently reading it and is loving it. And this is a grumpy sunshine story of essentially if Walt Disney had really attractive grandsons and really bad daddy issues. And they're really great romances. They're fun. They're creative. And I can't wait for the third book because I need to know more about Cal. Because his brothers are fantastic. They're all grumpy sunshines, which are just some of my favorite tropes. And I love it. I love it so much. Now, to end the video, I have a couple of books here that I have reprioritized on my TBR because of Book Talk. And the starting book that I have is Zodiac Academy by Caroline Peckham and Susanne Valenti. I kind of know what to expect from a bully romance now. Now at this point, I'm just terrified to get into this series because these books are thick. And they keep getting thicker. And I have heard that the last book ends on a huge cliffhanger. And I'm scared. So I'm thinking I may start this soon and just do one a month so that it ends perfectly as to getting the 8th book and being resolved of that cliffhanger. Next, I have Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I've had this book on my shelves way too long. I'm way too intimidated by it. Like, look at this. It's a monster. Look at it. It's a monster. I'm terrified of it, but whenever I see it, see, I almost dropped it. It's so heavy. I can barely hold it. Whenever I see it on my For You page, it's nothing but raving reviews. So I am finally, eventually, going to bite the bullet and read this book. And Sarah recently read it and has said that it's also fantastic. So now I have it all coming from all sides. Next, I have another Penelope Douglas book, which is Credence. This is actually the first Penelope Douglas book that I saw on Book Talk, but this was before I delved into dark romance, so I didn't want to gravitate towards this yet. So after reading Bully is when I grabbed this one, so I was like, I think I can handle it. And I've seen good things. And then I've also recently read a thing that this is a taboo romance, and I haven't read a taboo romance. So I think Penelope Douglas has just become my author where I start to dip my toes into subgenres of romances. I don't know how that happened, but it's happened. And the last book that I have is Pestilence by Laura Thalassa. I actually just finished her Bargainer series, which has been on my TBR forever. And I finally read it just because it finally popped up on my TBR. And I really enjoyed that trilogy. And then I started seeing all of these pop up, which is the the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse series. So there's a book for each of them, and they're personified. And I've heard nothing but great things. I don't know what's actually happening in the world, but I assume if the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are coming, the apocalypse is happening. But they're dudes. So I'm curious as to how Pestilence is personified. And all the other ones. Death at least makes sense. I've seen Death in TV shows and stuff. I can personify him just fine. But all these other ones, not really sure. So I'm very, very curious. I know I really like Laura Thalassa's writing style. I know I like her romance, so I'm very excited to jump into these books. And that's going to be it for today's video. These are the books that Book Talk has convinced me to read and convinced me to up on my TBR. Let me know down below if TikTok has influenced you into reading any of some of your new favorites. But that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, with the occasional Sunday. And I'll see you guys on our next video. Bye!